That in a picture? The drink?
No.
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن سار سبيله إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So tonight inshallah ta'ala we'll be continuing discussing the book Al-Mulaqis Al-Fiqhi by Sheikh Salih Fawzan Hafidullah ta'ala, and tonight bi'idhnillahi ta'ala that will be continuing that which is a continuation of what we kind of somewhat started last week, even though the author Rahim Hafidullah he put it as a separate chapter regarding matters relating to a child, and out of the in certain cases that the child being affiliated or who the child is nasab, is lineage go back to. So we discussed that matter inshallah ta'ala regarding what is mentioned here. Aywa.
Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillahi qala ma'allif rahimahullah, chapter 8, page number 463, title Establishing Paternity. If a man's wife or bondmaid gives birth to a child, the man is considered to be his father when there is a possibility that the child could be his, as when the woman is living with him as his wife. This is because the Prophet ﷺ said, the child belongs to the owner of the bed, i.e. the husband or the master.
So the author Hafidullah, he started discussing, as we mentioned, a continuation of what was discussed last week, where matters concerning, if cases concerning li'an, where there was a case of li'an occur between a husband and wife, an accusation was raised by one party, then they have to separate. In those cases, that what's the case regarding the child? So in those cases, what becomes the outcome of the child? So is the child that to be acknowledged by that father? So does he have paternal rights over that child? So some of these matters to be discussed. So you mentioned that under normal circumstance regarding concern the child that that he goes back to his father in most cases, as he'll outline these cases. Aywa.
There are 3 cases in which there is a possibility that the child belongs to a certain man. The first case is when the woman is his wife and gives birth to her child after half a year of their first sexual intercourse, whether the man lives with her or not, since the newborn baby can be this man's child or there is nothing to prove otherwise.
It is a discussion, as the author discussed regarding in these cases, regarding if a person have married to a lady for over half a year, or have relation with her, and over 6 months have occurred, which would be half of the year. So between the ulama or the fuqaha, they discuss concerning a matter regarding what's the least, let's say muddat al-hamal, what's the least time that is given regarding a woman being pregnant and having a child. So what's the least that time span that is given to a pregnancy? So they're trying to somewhat to have an idea regarding the least time of a pregnancy might go for, and also the most, as we'll discuss. So as you mentioned regarding that a pregnancy, that they're all concerned that that it can go to the least 6 months. If a person was to marry to a lady for over 6 months after having relations with her, so not from the time that you marry her, but from the time that after intimacy. So if 6 months have passed and the person may have gone, then they mention that if you was to have a child, then the child would be considered that he belongs to that husband. He'll be considered to be the child belongs to that husband because of 6 months have passed. The least amount that they mention is 6 months. They mention regarding concerning that of the aqwal of the ulama regarding the least amount is 6 months regarding aywa, and they mentioned the ittifaq regarding 6 months. That's the view that is taken by majority of the ulama. 6 months is the least amount of time that I mentioned. 6 months is an ittifaq between the madhahib. Aywa.
The second case is when the woman is divorced and gives birth to her child after less than 4 years after her irrevocable divorce. For the maximum period of pregnancy is 4 years. In this case, there is a possibility that the child is from her ex-husband and thus the child is attributed to him.
Yes, and the next matter regarding concerning attributing that child to the father, that they mention if a divorce have occurred and both are separated and they have gone, they say, separate ways. But then this lady who have been said, this ex-wife, that then 4 years later she claimed that she have had a child. Now, and she hasn't remarried. So she's divorced, 4 years have passed, then she's claiming that she have had a child. And that said 4 years have passed, is this child considered to be attributed to that ex-husband that she divorced and haven't remarried, or something else have occurred? So they mentioned that the maximum period that a pregnancy can go, so this is based upon the maximum time span for pregnancy after divorce, that it could last up to, the general is that a pregnancy, it can last up to 4 years. That a woman can carry a child up for 4 years regarding her pregnancy. Even though said that they discussed concerning the khilaf between the ulama, but regarding concerning the maximum time of a pregnancy can last for 4 years. That's the call of Jumhur of the ulama. So of the Jumhur include concerning the Shafi'iyah, the Hanabila, and Inda al-Malikiyah. So Jumhur of the ulama take the position that a pregnancy can last up to 4 years. Now, so that will give, so any case that between 6 months and 4 years, that a child still can be attributed to his father in those cases. Even though you have said that there's a khilaf between the ulama regarding the length of time, the maximum length of time for a pregnancy that can last, that they mention, you have different aqwal, you have many aqwal. So you have many different views regarding the maximum period regarding a pregnancy, that they mention of those who state regarding that it could last up to, which is said 9 months, which is said in most cases. So a pregnancy, 9 months, and that's the norm in most cases. Others who are mentioned, or they said akthar, it could go beyond 9 months. So the first is that in most cases, pregnancy will last up to 9 months, give and take a week or two. Now, so they said about 40 weeks. 40 weeks, give a week or two after or before. Now, so they mentioned that, but those who mentioned it can exceed 9 months. Then the next view up to an ulama, they mentioned that a pregnancy, it can last up to 2 years. That a woman can be pregnant for over up to 2 years. Another view is that a pregnancy can last for 3 years. A fourth view is that a pregnancy can last up to, we said 4 years. I would say that's the call taken by Jumhur, that a pregnancy could last up to 4 years. Then also you have those who mention a pregnancy could last up to 5 years. And those who mention it could up to 7 years. Now, so you have those different views. You have those different views regarding a pregnancy. And those who mention that there's no maximum regarding how long a pregnancy can last. Now, so they can somewhat leave it open. So I said now, as for what is the common, what they mentioned that what is common, the majority of cases, that a pregnancy will last up to 9 months, give and take, a week or two.
Were there examples from back then where people had been pregnant for like 4 years? That's why that came up.
Hey, so that's the next matter they discussed concern of those who kind of sound Jumhur, kind of somewhat take the bit of there. You have cases where, like I said, in the early days, where pregnancy people have been told, been informed, found cases where 4 years.
But is the baby still alive or is it dead?
Alive. Hey, so they're pregnant, but the pregnancy lasts up to 4 years. Now, to say, they mentioned that, so you have some cases that even that some of the Mashaykh who have in the explanation have mentioned some cases where people were informed that that the pregnancy lasts for 4 years. So even though you have a few of those cases, they said it is nadir. It is something which is rare. So it's not a normal occurrence. So they said based upon those cases, they said 4 years, that they said, al-hukm al-nadir, la hukm lahu, things that are strange, somewhat occurrences, out of the order, out of the norm, those cases that there's no ruling that is placed upon them because that's out the norm. So yes, if it occur, especially concerning in the past, then it will be considered to be cases of, we said it now, some of those that's not abnormal, but those unusual cases. So that's why of those who are going to start mention, yes, they have found cases. So they mentioned that 4 years is the maximum for them because of what they have experienced. So those things go to mention, it goes back to those who have come to those rulings based upon their experience or what they've been told. That cases of 4 years of carrying a child, so that somewhat took on this. So that's concerning the maximum. So they mentioned that knowing the maximum and knowing the minimum, then that can shape regarding the ruling regarding is that child attributed to the father or not. Attributed to the father or not. So if a person was to get married to a lady and then after intimacy, then 3 months later she's pregnant and she pop up with a baby. So after 3 months of marriage and of intimacy, then she kind of somewhat said, I have a baby. Then that will consider that baby would not attribute that child to him. Then you're going to have some questions to be answered. Or if you mentioned she had been divorced from this man and 5 years later she come with a baby and said, this baby I haven't remarried. This baby belongs to the person that I last was with or married with. Then also that raises question. Then that would raise question that exceed the 4 years that is given by Jumhur. But said that even though it is mentioned in the book of the Fuqaha, like in today's time, you understand, then regarding that what would be set as the maximum would be much different. Because in normal hospitals, they give you what? 40 weeks. Week or two less or over. If after then, what they do? Induce.
Yeah.
Hey, you understand? So the normal practice now, if you're a few days over, then they're thinking about delivery and to induce that woman. So that's the practice that you find common today. That's the practice that's common today in most places. So that's concerning knowing of those regarding pregnancy, how it impacts on is the child attributed to the father or not. And you are?
In the two aforesaid cases, the husband must be 10 years old or more to be able to have children. For the Prophet ﷺ said, command your children to pray when they become 7 years old, and beat them for neglecting it, i.e. prayer, when they become 10 years old, and arrange their beds to sleep separately.
As the hadith is mentioned, they mentioned the hadith in the Ahmed and others. Ahmed Abu Dawood have mentioned hadith, and that hadith al-Hasan. That hadith is Hasan regarding that one should instruct one children to establish the salat from the age of 7, and also they can be disciplined for not praying after the age of 10, and also to separate them at that age in the bed. So we mentioned the hadith is Hasan. That hadith is used. They said there's no clear or hadith that mentioned regarding, or ayah that mentioned regarding the length of time for a pregnancy. So these things are based upon these type of evidence, so indirect evidence that are used regarding. So this hadith is to explain that a boy at that age, after 10, then is more likely that he can get a woman pregnant. So it's not in cases of those that, and in today regarding concern like puberty with some child, even though they said girl get their puberty is maybe quicker than boys, that you find today that many children, especially in our society, into that at the age of 10 onwards, then many start having their cycle. And you are?
The Prophet's command to make the children sleep separately when they become 10 years old is a proof that they can have sexual intercourse, which leads to pregnancy and giving birth. This implies that a 10-year-old child can be a father even though his puberty is not evident, as puberty is evident only when its signs are apparent on him. Thus, Muslim scholars are of the opinion that husband's ability to have sexual intercourse is enough to make the newborn baby belong to him, and thus people's lineage being preserved.
Yes, that's one of those things regarding concerning of knowing of these ahkam regarding preserving of lineage, that the child is attributed to his proper father, in those cases, and also no cases that is where something may have gone wrong that needs to be looked into. Just as a side matter regarding this matter, that regarding concerning that of this matter, that the Prophet ﷺ kind of somewhat instruct regarding that the children of that age should be start to separate them between boys and girls, that to show that concern at that age, then treatment of a child is different. So even concerned that even as parent-child relationship, one have to be even, they said, be mindful of these things regarding the child when they reach the age of 12. Not 12, sorry, the age of 10. Now, so even as parents, regarding concerning your child and how you may interact with them, then have to be, especially in today's society, because of this, said, you have strict safeguarding rules. Now, so regarding concerning the matter, has to be more mindful regarding the child have reached that age, whether it's a boy or a girl. Now, that days back, child 10, 12 years, the parents still bathing that child. Now today is a different environment. In a different environment regarding concerns, that that so one has to be, be mindful of these changes that have occurred, regarding these changes that have occurred. So at the age of 10, or when you can kind of somewhat be the one to judge that by the time the child reaches 10, then kind of somewhat there's boundaries that are set. There's boundaries that are set regarding the do's and the don'ts regarding one's child. Aywa.
The third case in which the newborn baby can belong to the husband is when the revocable divorced wife gives birth to her child in a 4-year period starting after divorce and before the expiry of her waiting period. The same applies when the revocable divorced wife gives birth to a child before a 4-year period after the expiry of her waiting period. This is because the ruling on a revocable divorced woman in her waiting period is the same as that of a wife, so the ruling on paternity in case of the revocable divorce is similar to that in case of being married.
Aywa.
If a master admits that he has had sexual intercourse with his bondmaid, or if there is a proof of their sexual intercourse, then the child she gives birth to 6 months or more after the intercourse belongs to him. This is because she is legally considered his lawful woman by such intercourse, according to the generality of the hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ said, the child belongs to the owner of the bed, i.e. the husband or the master of a slave girl. If a master admits that he has had sexual intercourse with his bondmaid and then he has sold her or set her free, he is considered the father of the child she gives birth to in less than 6 months after her sale or emancipation. This is because the minimum period of pregnancy is 6 months, and if the bondmaid gives birth to her child in less than 6 months after their separation and her child lives, it becomes clear that she had conceived her child when she had been her master's lawful woman before her sale or emancipation. The Prophet ﷺ said, the child belongs to the owner of the bed, i.e. the husband or the master.
Okay, so those cases where the child is somewhat still attributed to the father. So those cases where the child at times are attributed to the father if they're within those time spans that have been mentioned. Aywa.
There are 2 cases in which the child cannot belong to the husband.
So attributing a child to the husband in certain cases, then they'll explain when those are not applied.
The first case is when the woman gives birth to an alive child in a period less than 6 months after her marriage. For this period is not enough for conceiving and giving birth to a child. In this case, the wife must have been pregnant before her marriage to her present husband.
As that's concerned, so if that's the case, then the child then is not attributed to that father, because that pregnancy is considered to be before they were married or before intimacy occurred. So that's concerning that before intimacy have occurred.
The second case is when the husband irrevocably divorces his wife and then she gives birth to a child in more than 4 years after divorce. This is because it is evident that she has conceived the child after her divorce. The child of a bondmaid will not belong to her master if he claims that he made sure he had her menstrual period after having sexual intercourse with him. as this makes him certain she did not conceive a child after having sexual intercourse with him. Therefore, her child surely belongs to another man. The master's claim is accepted in this case as it is so difficult to verify whether she really had her menstrual period and did not conceive a child after having sexual intercourse with him or not. However, such a claim to disown the child is not legally accepted unless the master takes an oath and swears by Allah that this child does not belong to him, as he thus denies any duty related to his paternity of the child. If there is a dispute over the lineage of a newborn baby, the lawful bed relations are legally more considered than mere resemblance between the newborn baby and its claimer. For example, when a master claims the child of his bondsmaid to be his and another man who has had sexual intercourse with her claims the child, because the child resembles him, the child legally belongs to the master, for the Prophet ﷺ said, the child belongs to the owner of the bed, i.e. the husband or the slave master of the slave girl.
Yes, that's concerned in those cases regarding if the woman is in a marriage or in that type of relationship, already established relationship, then the child, if there's some doubt, then the child would be attributed to the father, which would be her husband, that the child be attributed to the husband.
The child follows the pedigree of his father, for Allah exalted be He says, call them by names of their fathers. Surah Ahzab, ayat number 5.
So regarding concern that child, then of certain that are certain rights that they're deserving. So the child, that any child that is born, then there are certain rights that they're deserving of the things regarding that, the child that is giving the lineage of his father, meaning concern that he's given the name, which would be the surname of his father. So the child have a right to be given the surname of his legal father. That's of the right of the child over the father. Aywa.
However, when it comes to the child's religion, the child follows the better religion of his parents. For example, if a Christian man marries a polytheist woman, or vice versa, the child follows Christianity. Yet the child follows his mother concerning freedom or slavery, except when there is a previous condition or a kind of deception.
Hey, they mentioned regarding concerning that, so you might find another case regarding that, another case that if there's in a relationship, a couple, one is, the woman is of Nasara, a Christian, and the husband is not of any faith, he's an atheist, just to say he's an atheist. So this lady, she herself is a Christian lady, and her husband that she's married to is an atheist. And they are married. So that religion, so if they were living, so for us as Muslim, that will attribute a child regarding a religion, will attribute a child to what? Christianity. Because we see Christianity as being above that of atheism. So the child will be attributed to the religion that we see as the more dominant religion. So in another case, that a Muslim man is married to a Christian lady or a Jewish lady. Then in that case, the child will be attributed to the father's religion because he's Muslim and Islam is above all other religion. So another case, third scenario, that a case where Allah mustan, if it was there, A'udhu Billah, that a Muslim woman, that she's a Muslim woman practices it, she's upon Islam, but she have had a relationship, had a child with a Christian man out of wedlock. Because the Muslim one cannot marry them under any circumstance. But whatever happened that she have gotten pregnant by this guy, this person who's a Christian, so she's Muslimah and he's Christian. So that child will be considered to be Muslim. That child will be considered to be a Muslim. Whether they live in, even if they're living in a Muslim environment, we as Islam will see that child will affiliate that child to Islam, as Islam is the more dominant religion in our eyes. Another scenario. So that one, what was the case that we just mentioned?
The Muslim woman and the Christian man.
So opposite, if a Muslim man was to get out of zina, a Christian lady, have a child with her, then also that child will be considered to be Muslim.
What about in the case of a Jew and a Christian?
So that with a Jew and Christian, then Which of them of higher rank?
Rock, paper, scissors.
Huh?
Rock, paper, scissors.
Hey, possibly. Then the judge has to make a decision. If you understand, the judge may have to. Not that now overall concern, if you look at Judaism and Christianity concerning, by way of number, then the Christian outnumber them. You understand? By way of influence in the dunya today, the minority may have more influence. You understand? But that will go back to the judge to make that call. Or the person look at that case to make that call regarding those cases. So just for example, a woman that she was to embrace Islam and she have children. So a woman that she have embraced Islam and she has children who are still like youngsters, they will see that their children, that they will follow her in her faith or in her new faith of Islam. So from the fact that she have accepted Islam and she have children that are youngsters, then those children will be considered to be that they follow her in her faith, which would be Islam. Aywa.
After this quick illustration of the Islamic rulings on the establishment of paternity and verification of lineage, we realize the keen interest of Islam to protect and verify people's pedigrees, as there are consequent interests such as maintaining the ties of kinship, inheritance, guardianship, and the like. Allah exalted be, He says, O mankind, indeed we have created you from male and female and made you peoples and tribes, and that you may know one another. Indeed, the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you. Indeed, Allah is known and acquainted. Surah Hujurat, ayah 13.
So regarding concerning this matter, that there are certain things that regarding concerning lineage, that Islam put some type of emphasis on it, regarding concern that of the maqasid of the Sharia, so of maqasid of Islam regarding its laws, that is there to preserve certain things. So of those things to preserve is those things concerning that, so you have one of those things to be preserved Islamically. We have a deen, so preserving the deen, so Islam, to preserve the faith of Islam. Second, an-nafs, that Islam also there to preserve concerning that in human life. Also, al-aql, the person's intellect, the person's wealth, al-mal, and also an-nasab. So also Islam is there to preserve concerning one lineage. So all these things are in place kind of somewhat to make sure that that people can maintain their lineage, and as those things, they have rules that applies to those things. So knowing your lineage, knowing your birth, knowing your family background, then you have rules that apply to regarding that proper naming, also that being maintained financially and other rights, also that child, that there have inheritance law, inheritance right. So those things are attached to this. So I mentioned regarding the last part I mentioned that of mankind regarding Jalkum Shuban or Kabail lita'arafu, that even though we may be of different tribes and background, Islam is not totally against this. So being of a particular tribe or a particular background, Islam is not totally against this. So it has some bearing in Islam regarding being of tribes and nations, something to acknowledge that these things occur, and to maintain relationship between those tribes and those family members. But concerned as not individually concerned, the best amongst mankind, atqakum, are those who are most pious. So regarding on an individual basis, as to who is better than other, it is based upon a personal level of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and their level of dedication to Islam. Aywa, but overall it doesn't negate that to acknowledge one tribe and one's lineage, then Islam is not against this. Aywa.
Moreover, the verification of the lineage is not intended for the boastfulness and chauvinism known during the pre-Islamic period of ignorance to Jahiliyyah. Rather, it aims at cooperation, maintaining the blood ties, and being merciful towards one another. May Allah guide us all to what He likes and pleases.
Amen. Ameen. So that's concerning that discussion regarding lineage of some of the masail that Shaykh Hafidullah have discussed. There's a next new chapter. We want to start that one, at least part of it, because it seems to be a long one.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Huh?
It's a big one.
It's a big one, a long one, huh? Hey, so we started then. How long? How many? Okay, we start just to See, we have about a few more minutes remaining.
Bismillahi wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillahi wa mu'allif hafidhahullah. Chapter 9, page 467. Title is Waiting Period.
Yes, so the author Hafidhullah now discuss another chapter. So we'll be discussing a new chapter. So we've ended the chapters before that regarding concerning the different ways. So I've discussed concerning the previous chapters regarding concerning different forms of separation between a husband and wife. So I've discussed concerning that a marriage may come to end. You may have different ways in which a marriage may come to an end. That the author Hafidhullah, you have discussed different ways in which a marriage can they discuss concerning cases of at-talaq wal-khula, and also cases regarding ila, and also zihar, and also la'an. So these are different ways, or these different things that can impact regarding a marriage, regarding it continuing or discontinuing. So you have covered those matters, so knowing those laws regarding that, so the Muslim is aware of those laws and how to apply them accordingly, especially concerning those who are married or looking to get married. Then now he'll be discussing other matters that relates to still ahkam al-talaq, but by way of al-iddah, which is the waiting period that the woman would wait after some form of certain things have occurred regarding a separation between husband and wife. And we'll discuss concerning a separation between husband and wife. Then there's also other things that will come into effect, and that is the iddah, the waiting period. So of those things to be mindful or to be aware of, to have awareness of these things, as those rules still apply. Aywa.
The waiting period is a result of divorce and it refers to a legally specified waiting period after divorce.
So that's the definition of what they call al-iddah. So iddah, that you mentioned here, that the word iddah from adad, meaning concerning hisab. So it's like, a waiting period, counting time, so counting down of certain times. They mentioned that tarabbus mahmud shar'an. So they mentioned that it's a waiting period that have been formulated by the Sharia, and it occurs either because of talaq or wafat. So either form of separation have occurred between husband and wife through legal means, or it could it could occur not because of a divorce or a separation, but by way of death between one of the spouse, which would be concerned if the husband was to die and his wife still remained the widow, then she have to go through an iddah. So man don't go through iddah. So the general rule, man do not have an iddah. So men do not go through iddah. Iddah is applied, so meaning iddah, to make it clear, that iddah is a waiting period. So for example, a woman have been divorced, then she go through an iddah. Now as for the husband, we mean that iddah, during that period of the iddah, depending on how long, depending on the time that it lasts, that she cannot remarry during that time. So she's in a waiting period, she cannot remarry during that iddah period. As for the husband, for example, he divorces his wife and she's going through her iddah. He can still remarry the next day, but she can't. So the iddah, it applies mainly for the female, not to the male. Aywa. As man is able to marry up to 4 wives. So his situation is different. His situation is different.
In the case that he's got 4 wives though, and he divorces one of them, while she's in that iddah, he can't get married again, can he?
It depends on the iddah.
So until the iddah is finished from the 4th wife who he's divorced,
Aye.
he can't take another one.
He can't take another one. So he's not preset he's in an iddah, but because of the circumstance. Because of the circumstance, so he's not preset that he's in an iddah, is that he has used all his
Allocation.
what is allocated. All his rights have been used up.
The proofs of the waiting period are derived from the Noble Quran, the Sunnah, and the consensus of Muslim scholars. Concerning the proofs in the Noble Quran, Allah exalted be He says, divorced women remain in waiting, i.e. do not be married for 3 periods. Surah Baqarah, ayat 228.
So it's a woman who has a normal menstrual cycle. So a woman who has a normal menstrual cycle, then their iddah would be counted by their menstrual cycle. Aywa.
He also says, and those who no longer expect menstruation among your women, if you doubt, then their period is 3 months. and also for those who have not menstruated, and for those who are pregnant, their term is until they give birth. Surah At-Talaq, ayat number 4.
So those that does not have a regular cycle, then, or they gone through menopause, then as for them, then they count months. So it'll be 3 months in those cases.
This concerns the cases of separation between wife and husband in life.
That's while they are alive. So while in those cases where the spouse are alive, then that system will be applied. That system will be applied.
However, concerning the case of the death of the husband, Allah exalted be He says, and those who are taken in death among you and leave wives behind, they, the wife, shall wait for 4 months and 10 days. Surah Baqarah, ayat 234. The proof derived from the Sunnah is the hadith narrated on the authority of Aisha, radiallahu anha, who said, Barira was ordered by the Prophet to count 3 monthly periods as a waiting period, related by Ibn Majah. There are other hadiths indicating the same legal ruling.
That's concerning that concerning that in those cases that so the hadith is mentioned in Ibn Majah, and that hadith is considered to be Sheikh Al-Albani rahimahullah, or the hadith to be Sahih, and also Sheikh Shu'aib Arnaud. Aywa.
As for the wisdom behind the prescription of the waiting period, it is to make sure the woman has not conceived a child before separating from her husband, and in order not to let any confusion take place concerning the lineage of the child. Moreover, this waiting period gives the husband the chance to repent divorcing her and to take his wife back as long as his divorce is revocable. Honoring the marriage.
So that mentioned two of the hikmah regarding concerning one, the iddah period concerning istibra, rahim, kind of someone to see if she's pregnant or not. And if she's pregnant, then that takes a different course of action regarding pregnancy. Then also that of the benefit of the mention of the benefit also the iddah, that a time for the husband and the wife to see if they can reconcile. If they can reconcile our husband to reconsider and to take back his wife. Aywa.
Honoring the marriage contract and pointing out its sanctity is also intended through the prescription of the waiting period, and so is esteeming the right of the ex-husband. Besides, the right of the fetus is highly observed through the prescription of the waiting period when the divorced wife is pregnant. In general, the waiting period is considered protective of the previous marriage. The waiting period is obligatory upon every woman who has separated from her husband, whether by divorce, by the khul, wife's release against payment, by a dissolution of the marriage contract, or by the death of her husband. It is a condition.
So they mentioned a pause. So they mentioned regarding concerning that now, as for the hukum regarding al-iddah for a woman, it is wajib. So it's something that is a must for her to observe. So regarding the hukum regarding al-iddah, it is wajib for the woman, the woman to observe that iddah according to the type of the type of separation that she went through. So he mentioned regarding that as for that the type of ending of a marriage, it could be by way of talaq. That's 4 ways that he mentioned, talaq, and it has its own system and rulings regarding what applies with talaq in case of talaq. Also al-khul, which is also of a different approach regarding its iddah is different from that of talaq. Then also a fasq, then also the marriage being annulled or dissolved. And it mentioned, mata anha, that the husband have died. So if that death have occurred, then so you find that different type of iddah applies to the different ways in which the marriage came to an end. Aywa.
It is a condition to make the waiting period valid that such a husband consciously had privacy with his wife with her consent, and he was potent, whether she was a free woman or a slave girl, an adult or a minor, of those fit to have sexual intercourse. As for the woman from whom her husband separates before consummating marriage with her, whether through divorce or the like, while he is alive, she has no waiting period. Allah exalted be He says, or you who have believed, when you marry believing women and then divorce them before you have touched them, i.e. consummated the marriage, then there is not for you any waiting period to count concerning them. Surah Ahzab, ayah 49. The verb to count in the verse refers to counting the periods or months to determine the time of the waiting period, and have touched them implies having sexual intercourse with them. The noble verse indicates that there is no waiting period for the woman divorced before consummating marriage, and there is no dispute among scholars over this ruling. The mentioning of believing women in the verse is mere reference to the majority of the wives of Muslims, since Muslim scholars unanimously agree that there is no difference between the believing women and those of the people of the scripture, Christian or Jewish women, concerning this ruling.
Yes, so they mentioned regarding of those cases that a separation have occurred or divorce between a husband and wife have occurred, that you mentioned both are alive. So either of those cases would be that of those cases that a divorce have occurred, before the husband had intimacy with his wife. So he divorced the lady, and by the next day, a few days after, before any intimacy, or they said that they have consummated the marriage, he divorced her. So they got married. A few days after, he decided to release her, to let her go. So in that case of those marriages, so he did not, they said dukhul, there was no per se intimacy have occurred between both of them. In that case, then in that case, there's no iddah for her. So she has no iddah. Immediately. They are released, she can move on immediately. Nam Sheikh, tafaddal. After we Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu rasulillah. So as we mentioned before, we're saying that what is mentioned by the author, Hafidullah, that in the first case, that if a divorce was to occur, the husband was to divorce his wife, and they have not had intimacy, or the marriage was not consummated, that he got married a few days, 3 days later, that he divorced her, no consummation have occurred. In that case, she has no iddah. So she can get married as soon as possible, whatever she wants. So she has no iddah. But also said to know, so even in that case she has no iddah, but also they mentioned that even though there's no iddah, that because of what? No consummation, is she deserving of mahar? So we discussed that before. So the bab of mahar, that if they mentioned that yes, they may not have intimacy, but if they have khalwa, so they got married, and him and her went in a room by themselves and they were relaxing, relaxing, but they didn't have intimacy. Then the fact that they went in that room and they were somewhat by themselves, and those she can somewhat reveal herself to him, then she's deserving the mahar. She's deserving of mahar. So they mentioned that so she's deserving the mahar, as we had discussed before. So the main thing, the shahid from this, that they mentioned in this case, that if talaq occurs before consummation, then there's no idda, even though they may be that they were together in private. But the fact that there was no intimacy, then there's no mahar. If there's khalwa, then she's deserving of the mahar. She's deserving of the mahar.
However, when the husband dies, his wife must count her prescribed waiting period, whether she has consummated the marriage or not. For Allah, exalted be He, says, "And those who are taken in death among you and leave wives behind, they, the wife, shall wait for 4 months and 10 days." Surah Baqarah, ayat 234.
Next amendment is that they mention also, regarding that point that he mentioned also, that there is no distinction between in those cases, that regarding concerning ahkam al-talaq, that if a Muslim man is married to a ahli kitab, a lady of the book, nam, kitabiyya, so if a Muslim man is married to a kitabiyya, whether from Yahudiya or Nasraniya, then the same rules applies to them. Nam, so what the same rule applies to a Muslim lady, as we had discussed before regarding even concerning nikah, that they are deserving of a mahar, also they should bring their what? Their wali from their side. Now, so in the form of divorce, then the same thing applies. That so that the rules of divorce that applies to a Muslim woman also would apply to them. So in that case, that so that's also to be mindful of. So even not mentioned concern that that's in a Muslim woman, but also the same rule applies to a kitabiyya. Now, just something to add that we said that the hukum of the idda is what? Wajib. So if a woman wants to get married and she has not completed her idda, then if it's a woman, then what she have done is haram. And the matter, you understand, so it's no, that that marriage that she have gone into is to be nullified until she ends her idda. And to see whether there's shubha involved where maybe she wasn't aware, or did she do it knowingly. So if she did it knowingly, then that's a different thing. If she and that husband did the marriage knowing that her idda did not complete, then I can fall into something else. Nam, it can fall into something else. The more serious cases. Nam, so you have those matters that if it was done out of ignorance, she wasn't aware, then fihi shubha, then there's somewhat form of in doubt as to how the marriage took place, then for them to be separated. But in the case of knowing, then that's a different matter. If they knew what they were doing, then that's a different matter. Then that could lead to other criminal acts that they have committed. Aywa.
Moreover, there is no legal text or proof to differentiate between the consummated and unconsummated marriages in this respect. There are 6 kinds of women in their waiting period. Number 1, the pregnant.
So I mentioned, which one you just read? The one about? The last one you read about, the case of?
Moreover, there is no legal text or proof to differentiate between the consummated and unconsummated marriages in this respect.
So they're discussing regarding another case regarding another case of separation between husband and wife, that they have separated by way of death. In this case, concerned that the husband have passed away. So the husband, he has passed away and have left his wife behind. So in that case, that whether there was consummation or no consummation, the fact that he have died, then she have a set iddah to be fulfilled, which is 4 months and 10 days. So whether there was consummation, so that they mentioned, it's not, the ayat does not separate and make a distinction between both. So the rule apply across the board. And we'll may discuss in the ones to come after, so we may stop here. So of those cases, research and come back, and we'll discuss it next week. Now, a case that a woman married, her husband died, and a few days after, so her husband has passed away. So she's going through her iddah of wafat of her husband. That would be the time span for that would be 4 months and 10 days. But then few days after, when he died, she found out that of days after, she found out that she's pregnant. So the husband have died. So that iddah that she started, supposed to be 4 months, 10 days. Then then she found out later, a week or days after, that she's actually also pregnant. She's now pregnant. So which of the two iddah she fulfill? So she have two iddah in front of her, isn't it? Baby. So yes, sir. So she so in the case, for example, so the scenario that her husband died. So her husband died. So it's wait, listen, and so said research and come back. So her husband died on the Monday, right? And then she started her iddah of what? Wafat, isn't it? Of the passing of her husband. So that was it. That iddah, it's supposed to last for 4 months and 10 days. But then, so the Monday, the Friday, she found out that she's pregnant, and she's 2 weeks pregnant, 3 weeks pregnant. So that pregnancy, that iddah for that pregnant, would last for how many? Last for how long? Huh? Hey, so she's expecting that she might go to 9 months. So she have 4 months iddah and 10 days that she started. Now that case of her pregnancy, that her iddah may go to until she delivers, could go to 9 months. What does she do? Would you consider to say to be wafat, or she used the counting of her until she gives birth?
Both of those two different situations, they both have.
But there's one woman.
No, one woman. A husband dying. There's things that she can't do apart from. Also, she can't leave the house for 4 months.
But we're saying, so yes, so say with those cases, which of the iddah she used to give precedent? Which one will be the one she have to follow? Is the one of, if the one of her husband, this the death of her husband, that will go until 4 months, 50 days, say. Or she goes with the one which would be the pregnant case of until she delivers. If the same scenario, if she's pregnant, she's 8 months, 2 weeks pregnant, and her husband dies. And then 2 days later, she gives birth. So which one she work with? You understand? So it could go this way or that way. She's early in the pregnancy, or should it be late in the pregnancy? So which one she give precedent? Which one she follow? Hey, so research and let us, and we'll discuss it next week, inshallah.
We're going to look at the Masai of the first one. She became pregnant. He died and she was pregnant, right?
Hey, in both cases, she was pregnant.
But conceiving of that child had to have happened when he was alive. Yeah, of course.
Hey, yeah, so said we agree that so. No, said that it's not about the child we're discussing. It's not about the child affiliated to the father. It's more so that in her case, which of said she have 2 iddah ahead of her. So which one she goes with?
She hasn't been divorced. I thought the pregnancy thing is to do with divorce.
And yeah, so said it's not about divorce. She hasn't been divorced. Yes,
The pregnancy, does that only apply to talaq, or is it more than one?
hey, so that's the thing. So it applies. So said the pregnancy iddah, as a general rule, it goes until they give birth. So the general thing that in pregnancy, what time is it? That when she's pregnant, then that usually takes precedent regarding deciding her iddah. Right? So it could be a case where, said, no, for example, a woman been divorced, and this is their first divorce, divorce or raj'i, but she's pregnant, because a man can divorce his wife while she's pregnant. Right? So ordinarily, it will be what? 3 cycles. But because she's pregnant, then her iddah goes until she gives birth. So he has now, along with it, he have a more longer time regarding his iddah with her. With me? So in this case, so that cannot change. They said change the goalpost when you use those terms regarding when she's pregnant. So in this case, that the wife, husband have died. It could be in the early stage of her pregnancy. Would mean that, for example, she just found out she's pregnant and she's a week pregnant, but he have died. Compare that would be that a normal pregnancy 9 months. Her husband have died. Her idda for wafat would have gone to 4 months, 10 days. Now she have a longer extended idda because of the pregnancy, or does she stick to is that idda? Which one does she work with?
But she'd have to do the death one first anyway, because there's certain conditions that are kind of different to.
Yeah, I'm saying it will still, because the time span is longer, it will be included. But for example, flip the coin. If she's 8 months pregnant, 8 months, 8 weeks. He died today, he died Friday, and she gave birth the next day. Then, so that he died on a Friday and she gave birth on the Sunday. So as she completes her iddah because she gave birth. You understand? So her iddah in that case only 2 days. She can move on.
What, even if he died?
Yeah, so said which because he died. So does she? Do you count the one off? So which one you count? I said research. As I said research.
I should have said that unless you do 4 months or 10 days, unless you've had a baby, unless you have this.
I said she have two sisters that she can work with. Is that?
So you're saying